Morning to you. The government has made a U-turn on visas for foreign HGV drivers as it takes action to contain the growing supply crisis gripping the nation's petrol stations. The Transport Secretary announced short-term visas for 5,000 foreign drivers, as well as special funding to train up to 4,000 new drivers. But industry insiders are warning that things could still get worse in the short term as the mass panic buying of fuel across the country shows no signs of stopping. Ella Rothwell reports.
The government says they finally have an answer to this. Queues for petrol as far as the eye can see, caused by a shortage of drivers to deliver it, triggering some to panic buy.
I think a lot of it is people being greedy with the fuel, a bit like the toilet roll situation. They're just about greed. They don't give a damn about emergency services, people, essential carers that need fuel. They just think about themselves. You know, I work for the NHS and I still need to get fuel to get to work.
Now the government says 4,000 people will get free intensive training for an AGV licence, with MOD examiners providing extra tests and immigration rules relaxed to allow 5,000 hauliers from abroad to plug the urgent need. But some say foreign drivers won't be easily tempted to come.
It all depends what the wages are. If the money's right to entice people to come over here, move them away from their families for essentially a short period of time. I personally can't really see it working, but the proof's in the pudding.
As pumps on some forecourts run dry, there's pressure to find quick solutions.
This is the second petrol station on this road that's run out of fuel. Staff say they're expecting a delivery, but they don't know when or what type of fuel it will be.
Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said the industry must continue to improve conditions to retain new drivers. But with a shortage so severe, some are warning it could be 6 months before new government measures take effect.
Some of the things that are being done will help. It's questionable as to how quickly they're going to be able to apply. So we're talking about immediate fixes. And I think it's very difficult to tell how that will actually plug the gap of 100,000 HGV drivers short.
Until that gap is plugged, supply issues like these are likely to continue. Milena Veselinovic, Sky News.
Well, Emma Birchley's in central London for us this morning. It seems, Emma, the message is if you're thinking of going out looking for petrol, don't bother, because, frankly, everywhere seems to be shut.
Yeah, certainly on my drive here, I saw about 6 petrol stations and there wasn't a drop of fuel at any of them. And we know that there were signs up at the start of the M4 saying no fuel at the services heading westbound. And overnight, petrol stations that were closed, they get a delivery and then you start seeing the queues. So we've got some pictures from 4:30 this morning at a petrol station in West London where people were queuing up, and inevitably when they hear there is fuel, people keep coming. They're blocking the roads, causing all sorts of confusion for the traffic around there. So, you know, it can change when a delivery comes, but the fact is it's very, very unsure at the moment. And now we're getting details of the contingency plans from the government, which it's hoped will start to ease it. So, as was reported yesterday, 5,000 temporary visas, which will allow drivers from outside the UK to come in. That would start from next month and right up until Christmas Eve. Also, those 4,000 extra lorry drivers that are going to be trained up, some new investment from that, but also existing education budgets which will be used as part of that, and the MOD helping with examiners, which should mean thousands more tests are taken over the next 12 weeks. And quite interestingly, this news we're hearing of close to 1 million letters which will land on the doormats of people with HGV licences, trying to lure them back into the business with promises of more money, of better working conditions, flexible hours, fixed hours if that's what you want. So trying to get a stronger domestic workforce that is going to make sure that there aren't supply problems. But we are 3 months away from Christmas. We know that temporary visas have also been granted to 5,500 poultry workers, just as they were granted to help fruit pick during the summer. It's all trying to keep things moving, but time is ticking for Christmas. And in the short term, you know, people are driving around. We're seeing people coming up here, pulling up, going, asking where the fuel is. People slowing down, just checking. It's the same everywhere as people try to find fuel. Many people who desperately need it for their work or to visit family.
OK, Emma, thank you. Well, let's talk to Rob Hollyman, Director of Young's Transportation and Logistics. Good to see you this morning. Look, these temporary visas, 5,000 people coming in, and the letters going out to 1 million people who are not working but have HGV licences, is it going to make much of a difference, and quickly?
Morning. I fear not. You know, as is normal with this government and many preceding governments, it's far too little, too late. We reckon, and the RHA, you know, the trade body, reckon that there's somewhere around 20 to 25,000 drivers that left our shores at the end of last year and haven't returned. So we're talking about a fifth or 20% of those drivers that we need back being granted visas. So what about the other 80%? And why couldn't it be, you know, the 25,000 visas? I don't understand why they've limited it to 5.
Well, what about? Forgive me, but I mean, it's, you know, that adds something to the equation. 5,000 at least, 4,000 new drivers qualified pretty quickly, hopefully, in all of this, and former drivers being invited to come back. I mean, as a whole package, doesn't it make a difference?
No, I think there's a couple of red herrings in there. It says that they're going to be training up 4,000 drivers. Well, we've got somewhere in the region of 40,000 drivers that are trained up that are waiting to take the tests. It's not more training that's the immediate problem. It's getting these tests taken that's the immediate problem. So the right into 1 million drivers, let's be honest, you know, those 1 million drivers have heard all about the salaries that are being bandied around. If they wanted to come back into the industry, I suspect they'd have come back in now if they could. But what nobody's mentioning with these 1 million letters is that there's a requirement for them to have a certificate of professional competence. They have to sit for 35 hours in a classroom every 5 years. A lot of drivers that have retired or left the industry have let that lapse. So before they can sit behind a wheel, they'll need to get 35 hours in a classroom behind them, which will cost them anything between £300 and £800. So it's not as simple as just writing to them and saying, come back to the industry. I've been saying, and as has the RHA, let's give a dispensation to people to say, look, the CPC, if you retired or left the industry in the last year or 12 months, 18 months or 2 years, then you can be able to come back into it without having a CPC for 6 months. Maybe 12 months, I don't know. We could have a set period just to get us through this crisis, because a crisis is what we've got.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the salaries being bandied about. I mean, who's going to pay for that? Is that going to fall down to the likes of your company to find more money to pay these people?
Well, it's going to be you and me that pay these increases, because it's going to filter down to the end user. You know, the companies that are paying the enormous salaries, and we're hearing 60s and 70s and £80,000 a year, for goodness sake, they are the supermarkets. Now, how factual those salaries are and based on what, I can't tell you. But if we're going into salaries of that sort of region, then that's going to reflect on the end user, which is you and me buying the product at the supermarket.
I mean, you mentioned sort of too little, too late. I mean, it's a cliche in a way, but
it is.
But even if everything went to plan, even if everything the government has laid out worked beautifully, how long does that leave us before things are improving on the roads?
I don't think you'll notice much difference with what there's planned so far. I really don't. I'm sorry to be so pessimistic, And I'm not one of those that seem to scaremongering or shouting and screaming. It's not that simple. It is a simple solution, but they're not adopting it. The simple solution is 5 times as many visas. It's get these tests done 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. Drivers drive at night. Why not have a test at night? It's given support to the industry for young drivers who the insurance companies want massive premiums for under 25s, or for those that haven't been driving for 2 years. The government could underwrite those additional premiums. That would help get young people back into the industry. But what everyone seems to neatly sweep under the carpet is us, the general public, treat drivers with contempt. We do, whether we intend to or not, we do. 15 months ago, these guys were hailed as haulage heroes. They were effectively risking their lives by going into places where they knew nothing about the COVID protocols. They could be great, but they could be diabolical. So they actually were going in blind. Our shelves remained full. Obviously, you had the ridiculous panic buying that we've got of petrol now. We had that at the beginning of the COVID crisis. Surely we all remember that, where toilet rolls were disappearing off the shelves and goodness what, and pasta for some reason or other. These are the same people, I suspect, trying to get the petrol now, which is just selfish and totally inconsiderate. But these guys were haulage heroes. Now we're down the road a bit, and forgive the pun, but they're turning up at premises and being told, no, you can't use our facilities, it's staff only. There's far too few truck stops in the UK. We've been campaigning for that, the RHA as well, for years. And the ones that there are, the conditions are at best barely adequate and at worst downright disgusting. So little wonder that we can't attract people into this industry.
OK, Rob, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer's watered-down proposals for changing Labour's rulebook will be put to the party conference in Brighton following a bruising internal row. He's faced opposition from unions and Labour's left to proposals which would have dramatically increased MPs' influence in the election of a new leader. Now, despite concessions, and some pretty big ones, Sir Keir has managed to put a revised shake-up of Labour rules to a vote which is expected later on today. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, reports.
He's no longer leader, but Jeremy Corbyn is still the darling of the Labour left. And now he's spearheading the left's opposition to Sir Keir Starmer's party reforms.
You've got some degree of consensus on what we're doing and how we're doing it, where we're going to. If you then tear all that up and say we're going to manage the economy, we're going to reduce expectations and concentrate instead on rule changes within the Labour Party, I really struggle to understand how this is going to mobilise or motivate people to come to Labour in order to defeat this Tory government. I am desperate to get rid of this Tory government.
Mr Corbyn's former trade union cheerleader, Len McCluskey, promoting his memoirs in Brighton after his recent retirement, is also condemning Sir Keir's proposals.
Unfortunately, this is a pretty naked attempt to try to reduce members' input into the democracy of our party. I'm sad that Keir is supporting it, but it doesn't surprise me. And I hope they get voted down.
On day 2 of Labour's conference, Sir Keir wants to move on to promoting the party's policies, with announcements on climate change, housing, schools and online safety. But they're in danger of being overshadowed by the rule change row. Today, the battle over Sir Keir Starmer's contentious proposals to rewrite the Labour Party rule book moves from meetings behind closed doors to the conference floor, where the decisive vote on the plans takes place this afternoon. Sir Keir's shadow cabinet allies claim the reforms are vital for Labour.
But we're trying to do something really important this week, which is to get the Labour Party ready to win a general election. That's about making sure our organisation's in shape and to make sure we've got a vision for the country that inspires people and wins back trust.
One of the problems with the last set of reforms that were brought in is that it effectively allowed a situation where you can get elected by 20,000 Labour voters and then a handful of activists the next week can give you your marching orders.
But Mr Corbyn and his supporters are not giving up the fight. John Craig, Sky News, Brighton.
Our political Joe Pike is in Brighton for us this morning. Look, Joe, I mean, these modified reforms going to the floor this afternoon, what happens to Sir Keir if he doesn't win this?
I think it would be an embarrassment, but normally with the Labour Party conference, Stephen, they wouldn't push for a vote on the conference floor if they didn't think they could win it. And it's not a normal vote of party members. Half of the votes come from unions, half of the votes come from constituency delegates. Therefore, the leadership seem pretty confident, but Sir Keir is definitely wishing, hoping, praying he can pivot now to policy. One senior ally of his told me last night this was messy but a win for a number of reasons that John Craig has set out in his report. The pivot to policy will partly be on education and on private schools. Keir Starmer does want to end tax breaks for private schools. They currently have a charitable status. They're exempt from VAT and business rates, and the Labour leader believes that by ending all of that, if he is elected Prime Minister, he could make £1.7 billion, and that could partly be put to help school leavers and ensure that they are prepared for the workplace and have better career guidance. One possibly bad headline that could distract from all of that is Angela Rayner. Angela Rayner made some comments at a drinks reception last night here in Brighton and made some controversial comments about the Conservative Party, saying we cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute pile of banana republic, Etonian piece of scum that I've ever seen in my life. She did insist she held back a little. God knows what she'd have said if she hadn't. But the Conservatives are already calling for her to apologise. And I think today Angela Rayner and some of her senior Labour colleagues could be asked difficult questions about those comments. Those comments, of course, aimed at a loyal left-wing Labour audience. But is that the sort of right tenor and tone when actually they're really trying to persuade people in previous elections who voted Conservative, Lib Dem and the SNP to now, Stephen, vote Labour?
OK. Joe, thank you. Now, Anthony Joshua has failed to retain his heavyweight titles after being beaten by Ukraine's Oleksandr Usyk in a 12-round fight in North London. Hannah's got all the details for us this morning.
Yes, Stephen, it was a devastating defeat for Anthony Joshua as he lost his heavyweight world titles to Ukraine's Oleksandr Usyk, who takes Joshua's WBA, IBF and WBO heavyweight titles on points at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Usyk won the sensational fight by a unanimous decision after what was a truly scintillating performance. The judges scored the fight 117 to 112, 116 to 112 and 115 to 113, all in favour of Usyk. He becomes only the third boxer to win world titles at cruiserweight and heavyweight. And it's the second defeat of Joshua's career after he was beaten by Andy Ruiz Jr. back in 2019. He got his belts back, though, in the rematch of that one. It does, though, ruin Joshua's hopes of the dream all-British undisputed title fight against Tyson Fury, who again faces Deontay Wilder on October the 9th. The big question this morning was the result a surprise? It wasn't really a shock because the unbeaten Ukrainian Usyk is a former undisputed world cruiserweight champion.
Hannah, thank you. Now, Germany will choose a new leader today as Angela Merkel bows out as Chancellor after 16 years. Polling stations have just opened with, with provisional results expected in the early hours of tomorrow morning. Let's show you what's happening in Munich, where the polls opened a short time ago. Oh, there doesn't appear to be anybody there yet. But there you go. It's not the most gripping. It's not the most gripping picture, is it? But never mind. That voting is underway, and it is a very tight race. This one. There will be a coalition as a result of all of this. The big question is who is going to end up being Chancellor. Will it be Angela Merkel's chosen successor from the CDU, who really doesn't have a lot of popularity? It has to be said he's quite an unpopular figure. Or will it be... oh, there's someone going in to vote. There you go. The other candidates who are seen as much more charismatic, even the potential leader of the Green Party. I mean, they're trailing in third place in the polls at the moment, but possibility that she may be able to step in as Chancellor. All part of the negotiations which will happen depending on when what that result is. And so we'll get provisional results tomorrow. A book of condolence has been opened at a community centre in Kidbrooke, giving people the chance to send messages to the family of teacher Sabina Nessa. The 28-year-old was murdered as she walked to meet a friend at a pub just 5 minutes from her home in south-east London. At least 3 people have died after a train derailed in north-central Montana. A spokesman for rail firm Amtrak said 5 cars of the Empire Builder train, which runs between Chicago and Seattle, derailed near Joplin. Now, there have been more evacuations on the island of La Palma, where a volcano has been erupting for a week now. The airport has been closed. Emergency services have had to retreat because of ongoing explosions, which are sending a thick plume of smoke into the air. Becky Cottrell reports.
This red-hot lava is a sign that things are getting worse. It continues to pour down the mountainside in slow but terrifying streams. These houses are empty. Those who lived here were evacuated, like thousands of others on the island who've left homes they fear they'll never see again. Everyone here is waiting, wondering when the eruptions will stop and how much damage they'll do before then.
I'm very, very worried about the situation of the ash, because the ash is blanketing the neighbourhood. It's been a disaster for all the plants, animals and all the buildings.
The volcano has been emitting molten rock and toxic ash for almost a week. And the explosions have become more intense, the pressure inside creating a new vent to the outside.
The 2 openings, the 2 mouths, as you normally say, ended up merging into just 1 mouth, through which, yesterday afternoon and night, the new lava flew and settled above the old lava.
How long will it carry on for? The experts can't be sure.
We cannot have a statistic, we cannot go to the absolute number of days or weeks, because we have some eruption that lasted nine days, but we have another eruption in Lanzarote that lasted years. So in La Palma, the eruptions actually, I mean, the known eruption, the historical eruption, the last 500 years, have a duration of about 20 days and 80 days, but this is not the rule.
La Palma's airport is closed because of a giant ash cloud, traces of it everywhere. And as the clean-up operation continues, the island prepares to take in the full scale of the destruction. Becky Cottrell, Sky News, La Palma.
Now, if one marathon sounds like hard work to you, and yes it does, spare a thought for 28-year-old Ella Rothwell, who's just done 6 in 6 days to raise money for CALM, the campaign against living miserably. And Ella joins us now from Bristol. Good to see you this morning. The most important thing here, I guess, is to talk about why you decided to do this, your motivation.
Good morning. Yes, I did it predominantly in memory of my little brother, but also to raise awareness and start a conversation about mental health that I feel is not being had as much as it could be.
I mean, what happened with Freddie? I mean, clearly, close siblings. Were you aware of the struggles he was going through?
We really weren't, and it came completely out of the blue. But in April 2019, he took his own life, and none of us saw it coming. He was a very vivacious, loving, gorgeous person, and we didn't expect it at any point. So it was a huge shock and a huge loss for our family.
Can't even bear to think about it, really. I mean, so what does CALM do? What are their aims? I mean, the campaign against living miserably is one thing, but is it about young men in particular sort of opening up and being able to express their feelings?
Well, Calm are doing amazing work with providing phone lines for anybody who is in need. So most of the money that I have fundraised with this run will go to keeping phone lines open so people can call and have somebody external to speak to when they're feeling at their lowest point, or just if they need to speak about how they're feeling to someone who they don't know and don't judge. But they are also doing amazing things for families who are bereaved through suicide, and they offer lots of support in that way too. So they're just a fantastic charity.
I mean, I know you decided to take on this ridiculous task with the aim of raising £5,000. You've well surpassed that, haven't you?
Yeah, we're really nearly at £30,000, which is phenomenal and beyond all my wildest expectations. But everyone has been so generous, especially through this week. And the support has been incredible. And we've got nearly £30,000. So it's really, really great.
And it will make a big difference, I'm sure, to Calm. Look, 6 marathons in 6 days. How was it from day 1 to day 6?
So I actually have got a queried stress fracture in my foot now. So the last marathon was cycled, but from the very beginning, it was just, it almost didn't feel real. It just felt like I've got to do this. I've got to get the miles in. And I ran all along the canal path from the Thames to down through to Bristol. So it was beautiful all the way. It did feel slightly insane, but it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And
I mean, clearly it involves spending a fair amount of time in your own thoughts doing something like this, I would imagine. Does that... were you thinking about Freddie on the way or part of the way? I mean, it must have given you a chance to reflect.
It really did. Freddie was known for wearing beanie hats, so I had his beanie in my backpack the entire way. And it was a lovely opportunity to feel like I could take him with me on what I was doing. And I think running has been huge for my mental health over lockdown, and has helped me heal and has helped me grieve since losing Fred, hence why I started doing it, because I'm not a natural runner. So yeah, it's been a really great process, and I took him with me the whole way.
Yeah, I bet you did. Look, really good to talk to you, Ella. Thanks very much indeed. If you're affected by any issues like that, you just need to talk to someone. Now, there are various people you can get in touch with. Calm, I know that Ella's been fundraising for. You can go to the calmzone.net and contact them that way, and that obviously is particularly linked to suicide and the families of those people who've died through suicide. So they might be a great place to reach out to. Or, of course, you can speak to the Samaritans, and they will, again, listen to you without any sort of judgment. 116123 is their phone number, or you can email joe@samaritans.org. Now, let's see what the weather's going to do for you. Good news and bad news today. There is going to be warm sunshine, but wet and windy weather is moving in, and that's going to sort of change it over the next week to sort of cooler and more unsettled conditions. So mild, cloudy start, bit of drizzle this morning. Rain and gusty winds moving into Western Ireland. Much of Britain will be fine with some warm, sunny spells, just a small risk of heavy showers in southeast England. But it is going to turn windy across Ireland, Northern Ireland, Western Scotland as that rain pushes eastwards with some heavy bursts of rain. Time for the papers then this morning with Anne Diamond and Michael Booker. Good to see you both again. And let's start with the Sunday Times. Should we be looking at wind farms?
Yes, but this is a wind farm and a solar farm in Morocco. I mean, obviously, we know that we're facing a bit of an energy crisis, could get worse. We've got electricity companies going out of business and what have you. Well, the former chief executive of Tesco, a guy called Sir Dave Lewis, who apparently used to be known as Drastic Dave, has come up with quite a drastic solution. And basically, he's bought, or he wants to buy, this enormous area the size of Greater London in Morocco, in North Africa, and where there is uninterrupted sunshine and wind, apparently. So it's the perfect place to put a solar and wind farm. And so he wants to build that solar and wind farm there, and then have a giant long cable that's going to be something like 70,000 kilometres long, going all the way, basically from Morocco, all the way down past Spain and up past the French coast and into Britain, which seems amazing, but I suppose they do put these sort of cables down, don't they? And he reckons it will provide free energy to about 7 million homes in Britain by the end of the decade. The only trouble is he hasn't got enough money to actually do it himself. It's costed to be £16 million, which actually sounds very cheap, doesn't it? But he's asking Boris Johnson for the money to be able to do it. So far, hasn't had much luck. But it does sound like a very good entrepreneurial idea.
It does, doesn't it? I saw something once about if you put solar farms in the Sahara Desert, you don't need a very big area to be able to generate enough power for the whole planet, apparently. Wow. But how you get it, how you get it there is another matter. There's lots of cabling, isn't it?
Well, exactly how you get it there and how you get the energy back just with these long cables all at the bottom of the sea. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. To the Sunday People, Michael, looking at Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, well, on the front of some newspapers, we've got the leader of the Labour movement, the Labour Party, setting out their stall, and so's Keir Starmer. No, Marcus Rashford, who's many think is the real leader of the Labour Party these days, and the man who gets things done rather than politicians. He's demanding that they axe the £20 benefit cut, the universal credit cut that's coming up in October. Now, he has got a good track record with changing the minds of the government, as he did with the school dinners last year, and it just shows you how effective activism is at the moment from various celebrities if they hit the right cause. Whereas, if you look at someone like Keir Starmer and you look at the Labour Party and the way that there is this infighting dominating, people are getting a bit tired of that. And when they see someone like Marcus Rashford, a successful footballer who's come up from fairly humble beginnings and is now trying to make a difference, you can see, well, people are having their heads turned by people like him. And interestingly, in Starmer's stuff in the Sunday Mirror, he's talking about getting rid of universal credit altogether at some point. So they might want to have a bit of a conversation because Marcus seems to be leading it at the moment.
Yeah, there's something about him. He does, for such a young man, he does have a lot of credibility, you have to say. To the Sunday Express, Anne, looking at... I have to be honest, I don't like this whole talk about Christmas yet. It's too early. It's too early.
But we all want to think about Christmas now. And this time last year, we were only just beginning to come to terms with the fact that maybe Christmas would be ruined. And I was in total denial over it. I thought, no, there's absolutely no way. Nothing's going to stop me having a family Christmas. And it didn't happen. And the worst thing is that if we don't get our act together and get more lorry drivers on the roads and start to free up business again, then we may well find that we are in lockdown by default. That's what some politicians are predicting. And lockdown by default really means that it's the government's fault. Last year was COVID. There was nothing else maybe that could be done. But this year, these shortages, these problems should have been predicted months and months ago, many people are saying, and that, frankly, it's the fault of the government if we have to endure a Christmas that is effectively locked down again, simply because we can't travel, we haven't got the fuel, we can't get the stuff.
Oh, it's depressing, isn't it? It is depressing. I don't know about you, Mick, I'm going to start freezing my sprouts now in preparation.
Certainly.
Why not? What's this in your paper about dry cleaners?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? It shows you what a nation of scruffs we've become, because there's about 2,000 dry cleaners have gone bust in the last 18 months, simply because we're not wearing those fancy clothes. The shirt market apparently has gone down 70%. Now, there's the old Jerry Seinfeld joke about the warning label on dry cleaning only clothes is the only label that humans actually respect. So we're all going to have all this stuff knocking around the house. I mean, have you ever done done that? Have you ever tried to wash clothes, dry clean only, and put it in a washing machine? It's like Russian roulette. Now, these people, we used to hand over this stuff to them. It was covered in whatever. You give it to them, they put them in that big magical machine that didn't seem to have anything in it whatsoever, tumbled it out a bit. Next thing you know, it came back shrink wrapped in plastic, perfect again, not smelling of anything, looking great. These people are magicians, and we should be paying them more. And this country is going to be at a loss once people start wearing suits and nice dresses again and going back to work, because the dry cleaners have gone.
Oh, go on, Anne.
I wonder if we will go back to wearing quite such formal clothes as we did before. I mean, the death of the shirt is a good thing. We should have killed off the shirt years ago. I mean, all of the ironing and pressing that goes into shirt wearing is ridiculous. So I'm beginning to think that maybe, even if maybe we do go back to the office, we'll accept a much more liberal, sort of easy way of dressing, and we won't need the dry cleaner, sadly, anymore.
Oh, I live in hope that if you're a dry cleaner, stop putting everything in plastic. Drives me mad. Put it in paper if you've got to put in anything at all. Drives me mad. It's such a waste of resources, that. Anne, in the Mail on Sunday, nasal sprays. I've got to say, I can't see the appeal of a nasal spray.
No, but this is a nasal spray that will fight COVID. It's been developed by a number of people working for a company, but it's mostly Oxford University scientists again, who have invented this spray, and it contains an active substance that is lethal to viruses. Apparently, it kills the COVID virus in 30 seconds. So if you spray it up your nose, it can give you something like 8 hours protection. Now, they're saying that if they can bring it to market, it's not a replacement for the vaccination. No way. But we do know that the vaccination doesn't stop you transmitting COVID. And this could, because it actually kills off, if it's up your nose, it kills off the virus within 30 seconds. So it never gets through to you, the virus, but also means you're not breathing it onto other people as well. Yeah. So it could be an extra tool to fight COVID with.
Oh, well, I might have to change my views on it all. Look, good to see you both this morning. Thank you very much indeed. All the top stories coming up. Just a moment.